Hello there, this is Heirs to the Kingdom channel, and in today's lesson we're doing chapters 37 and 38 of the book of Genesis. If you're new to this, it's the Bible study channel going through the King James Bible, not skipping anything as Scripture's command. So if you would, like, subscribe, and share this content, we're going to go ahead and get started. And so last we left off, we had Esau and his descendants. Esau was the father of the Edomites. The whole chapter, that's all it was talking about. And it's pretty much last we hear about Esau, but some of his descendants will come into play later on as we're in the Old Testament. So, like I said, if you would remember some of those names, because they'll be, showing up again. Now, this is how the people should have known that scriptures were completely accurate, because Moses wrote the book of Genesis. God told him the names of these people. Moses was no longer alive when these names show up again, later on. And, some of them are, but so you have other people writing books of the Bible, instructed by God, and they're given the names of the people at the time, which a lot of these names are going to be popping back up. Moses couldn't have known their names. God knew what their names would be. So it's kind of fascinating with that point there. But let's go ahead and jump right on in here. Chapter 37. I think I'm going to be doing a little over 60 verses total. But if it's pretty straightforward reading, it won't take too long. So let's go ahead and get started here. Chapter 37, verse 1. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. Of course, Jacob has been renamed Israel. Verse 2, these are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. Joseph also was the firstborn of the wife he wanted. Trying to remember Rachel. Yeah, Rachel. You had Leah and Rachel. Jacob was conned into betting Leah on his wedding day, thinking he was getting Rachel, the younger sister. So most of his love was towards the one that he wanted the most. And that's how a lot of people are. Now, he didn't say that he neglected the others. He just loved Rachel more. And Rachel died giving birth to Benjamin. So more likely in the eyes of Joseph, since Rachel finally bore him a son, that's his firstborn. That's his heir, the woman he wanted. And the other brethren, who at no fault of their own was in the middle of this game of deception and this game of who can have more children, because Rachel only gave him 2 children. And the others gave him more. But they get jealous, of course. Let's continue on here, verse 4. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably about him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood round about it, and made obeisance to my sheaf, which is, paying homage to. Verse 8. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. So those that don't know the Bible too much, we're now in the book, the story of Joseph. My favorite story in the Bible. Let's continue on here, verse 9. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. I hope I'm saying that word correctly, but verse 10. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? So here, since he said mother to Joseph, then Benjamin has not been born yet. But Rachel does pass away while giving birth to Benjamin. Verse 11. And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it that we slay our brother, and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit. And he rent his clothes, and he returned unto his brethren, and said, The child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, This have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it and said, It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned in to a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he took her and went in unto her. And she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Chezib when she bare him. And Judah took a wife from his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his. And it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house till Shelah thy son be grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And in process of time the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted, and went up unto his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hira and the Adulamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, Behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnath. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be an harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, Go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will give thee a kid from the flock. And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend, the Adulamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, Where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, there it was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. And it came to pass about 3 months after that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar thy daughter-in-law hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, bring her forth, and let her be burnt. When she was brought forth, she went to her father-in-law, saying, by the man whose these are, am I with child? And she said, discern, I pray thee, whose are these, the signet and bracelets and staff? And Judah acknowledged them and said, she hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son, and he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail, that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, this came out first. And it came to pass he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out, and she said, how hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. And that's the end of this lesson. Now, I mentioned this before about Jacob and Esau. I thought one of them did that, and that's when they tied the thread or something around the wrist, but no, this is where that part was. So in the other lessons I mentioned that, sorry. Like I said, with my dyslexia, sometimes the lessons kind of start blending in. But it doesn't change the meaning of the lesson. The lesson is here that, as he said, she was more righteous than him. Because, like I said, with the rules of marriage, I've talked about this before, the woman, when she's given to another family to be wife, she now belongs more to that family than she did the family that she came from. So now the father-in-law is more responsible for her than her biological father. And he didn't do right by her, because without a woman doing what God created her to do, it's causing her to not be right in the eyes of the Lord. But it was going to be the fault of Judah. Now, this was their traditions back then, to be passed down to another brother to keep the seed in the family, because all the brothers came from Judah, the dad. So the seed still would be with that family. And of course, we don't do this nowadays. I don't know if this is still a thing or it should be still done today. Like I said before, the Bible never condemns a man having a harem. It does, condemn adultery and stuff, like that. But the rules for running the church is to be a man with only one wife. It says preachers, deacons, and bishops are to be a man and the husband of only one wife, and he must have his house in order. And that's the rule of Christianity. Like, we've already went through the Bible once, and if you've been following along and going through the Bible again, just to, you can't, it takes a long time reading the Bible to have a lot of this stuff, completely memorized word for word. And you need to read through all the Bible, but you got to keep going back through it and keep refreshing yourself until it's more imprinted on your brain. And then, this is the part of putting on the whole armor of God. But nowhere in Scripture do I find where it, says that a man is only to have one wife. Only if he's going to be a preacher, deacon, or bishop, a leader of the church. That's to be a man of only one wife. Now, the Scriptures does, kind of talk about that a man that has more than one wife, he's going to have more sorrows. And it talks about that with like King David, King Saul, King Solomon, stuff like that, because they had hundreds of wives. It wasn't just 2 or 3. Thousands. I think Solomon had, I don't know, I think about 1,500 wives and concubines. Stuff like that. Either or, it's like, these men could have had multiple women each day for a whole year and not seen the same one twice. That's a little insane to me, because that's just going to bring so much chaos. Because, like, who's raising the kids? Which kids are yours? Do you even know? How it's like, it's kind of weird, We would definitely think it was weird. Now, I don't recommend, and the Scriptures pretty much doesn't really recommend a harem. But also, God's, Scriptures we read says a woman is only saved in, being a wife and in childbearing. That's her natural design. And since there's normally more women than men in most areas, so somebody has to have more than one. And then you got also the rules for a man to even seek a wife. He has to be ready to be a husband and a father before he's even to seek a wife. We already had that in lessons 2. We haven't come up to it yet, but it is in here. It's part about being ready. And to be a husband and a father means you're ready to be a teacher and a provider and have a home to put your wife. And your parents' basement or attic or your old bedroom is not one of those. You're supposed to be very responsible first. But anyways. So we've already started with the talking about what happened to Joseph. Then we went talking about, Judah, one of the other sons, one of the 12 tribes. And then we're going to be going back, talking about, starting in 39, we'll go back talking about Joseph in Egypt. But this was meant to be. Joseph needed to go to Egypt in this way to set things up that would later save the life of his family. To the point that even his own father, Israel, will bow to him. That's like, if you don't know if you ever known the story of it, it's called Prince of Egypt. No, wait a minute, that's for Moses. No, well, Moses is the Prince of Egypt. I can't remember what the Joseph one is called. The animated film stuff of either, or it doesn't matter. But, he's also, he's underneath Pharaoh eventually, but he has a hard life, getting there. Anyways, like I said, that's the end of this lesson. But here we have the first sign of having sex without the intent of producing a child is a sin. It upsets the Lord. So using birth control is wrong. It's because, it's the intercourse is meant to be pleasurable, but also it's meant to reproduce. Now, of course, if there's special situations between you and your spouse and something of that nature, I'm pretty much, sure God would understand if there's a special circumstance there and you need to stay away from, say, some health reasons or something of that nature. But, those are very rare. And later on, also, we find out about this, that, God condemns another man that does this very thing. If I remember correctly, there's another story in the Bible where it talks about a man doing this with his brother's widow, but he does it multiple times. I don't know, so maybe the stories are blending up in my head again. Who knows? But as I said, like the lessons of the stories is what we're supposed to remember. What are these lessons about? What do they mean? What do they mean to us? Because we know that also the scriptures say, if you to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul is to seek the Lord. How do you seek the Lord? By reading His Word. By reading His Word, you understand who He is and what He expects from you, from all of us. So, anyways, don't forget to pray. Things the things going on in your life you need to pray about. Things going on in other people's lives you need to be praying about. There's always something or somebody to pray for or pray about. Somewhere in the world or in your neighborhood or in your own church, in your own house, wherever, in your own state, wherever you are in this world, always something to pray about. And we're also commanded to pray all the time. And don't forget to give God all the glory, praise, worship, and thanks in everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. It's also a commandment in Scripture as well. I'm going to go ahead and end this lesson here. So until next time, God bless, good night, and goodbye.